Hi, we're Shannon and Jerry Arner.
And our dog, Betty White.
Your hosts of the Arner Adventures podcast.
Could we have named it something more creative? Probably. But it's the name of our blog. It's our last name. We're on an adventure. Yada, yada, yada. After owning our own business, working 24/7.
And don't forget a mental breakdown in between.
We made a lifestyle change and decided to make the most out of life.
We sold our house, most of our belongings, downsized, and moved to the coast.
We live life minimally, but fully.
We live each day as an adventure.
This show will help you learn how to live life more fully, with more intention, by experiencing more, and with less stuff.
We'll talk about our own experiences, interview others who have much to share by creating a spark in our lives.
Some days we'll share real-life ongoings of what we're going through, and others will talk about our favorite flavor of waffle.
Come join our adventure.
It's the Arner Adventures Podcast.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jerry.
And I'm Shannon.
Betty White, our golden girl, is hanging here with us, and we're back for episode 91 of the Arner Podcast. 91.
9 more. I'm not great at math, but I do know that 9 more we're going to be at episode 100.
And that's going to be a big one.
Yowza.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can't even believe it.
Celebrity guests. I'm promising too much.
You really are.
It is going to be a big one.
We'll do something special. We have some ideas, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Well, gosh, you guys, we have a Spark in Our Lives episode. We haven't had one in a while. We've kind of enjoyed the summer of it being our solo, quote unquote solo, because it's 2 of us, episodes. We've really enjoyed them.
We have.
I still enjoy them.
We have.
But we run across someone here and there that we're like, what? They're a spark in our lives.
And that just made it so great to get back.
Yeah. And what a great kickoff to a Spark in Our Lives episode again of our guest today, Sarah Horgan. OMG. We found Sarah. I can't even remember exactly where she came up, kind of in the realm of our world, but I know that we've, read her blog, listened to her podcast, and Sarah has of course, an inspirational story. She is going to be a spark in your life too, but an inspirational story that shows how something big, detrimental sometimes it's a catalyst, how if you want to put a positive thing, that it's a more of a challenge, but something that happens in your life that really changes everything. And like we have talked about before, we definitely had the catalyst of our burnout and grief, and it really made us change our whole lifestyle to where we sold everything and got rid of everything and moved to the coast. And Sarah has such an interesting story.
She does, and I think we both felt she was just an easy conversationalist too, but great for our podcasting format.
Yeah. So I think we should just go ahead and get to the conversation. You think?
Let's do it.
We want to extend a warm welcome to our guest today, Sarah Horgan. Let us tell you a little bit more about her. Sarah is a full-time working mom and wife, a full-time teacher at that, who lived with clutter and found her way to the other side. We can relate to that. She radically changed her own life after a stage 4 cancer diagnosis, forced to examine everything, including her perfectionism and people pleasing.
Another point we can relate to.
Right. She realized that all the stuff, and not just the physical stuff, was standing in her way of living her life her way. After embracing minimalism and finding her way to simplicity, Sarah started Simple and Intentional to support other women to do the same.
Suppose it's probably beneficial for men too.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Sarah encourages, teaches, and inspires everyone through her coaching, blog, Instagram, and podcast, the Simple and Intentional Podcast. Sarah lives in Toronto with her husband and daughter. She loves the outdoors, a strong cup of tea, and is following her dream of writing a book. Sarah, I feel like we are kindred spirits. Our lives align so much, and we were so excited to have you as a guest, and thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for asking me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, we have so much to dig into. First and foremost, we always like to paint a picture to our audience of, and this is, the people on YouTube can see you, but we still like to paint a picture of where you are. So are you coming to us from Toronto right now?
Yep. Yeah. I'm at home in Toronto. This is my living room.
And are you originally, are you a lifelong Canadian?
Yes. I was born in a suburb outside of Toronto, and now I live in Toronto. So I've always kind of lived in the same area.
It's the beauty of the internet that it connects you to people all over the world. So we love that.
True.
Yeah. And
true.
despite our distance, we can tell you're very relatable to our experience.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
I want to, and our first sort of point gets into that, but like Jerry said, our lives sort of parallel with how we had, and I kind of want to know how different it was for you before. But I think sometimes it takes a defining moment that to change your sort of way of thinking, your whole lifestyle. With us, it took really mental and physical breakdown and suffering through grief and things like that. So I don't want to in any way put that on the same level as cancer, but I do wanted to sort of have a point that there are these catalysts that sort of change the way that we think. And so that changed our lifestyle. And I was just curious if with you were a very different person before you sort of transitioned into more minimalism, simple, intentional living. And how did that transition come about? If you could just walk us through that.
Yeah, totally. First, I want to say I feel like cancer always feels like such a big thing, and it is, but I feel like everybody goes through their own, like you said, the like defining moment that's a catalyst that like pushes you to change. And I feel like that's hard no matter what it is, like it's your hard. And yeah. And I find that too with my guests as well. Like there's just a breaking point for people where they're like, I can't live like this anymore. I have to change. And for me, the first push was my cancer diagnosis. Like I sort of suddenly I was a teacher. I'd been sick all the time and I didn't know why. And I was always tired. And so when I got this diagnosis, like in some ways I was like, because now I know why I feel this way. But it was also like a stage 4 diagnosis. It was really scary and things happened really rapidly. And so in some ways I was given this sort of like gift of time off work while I went through this. And I didn't have my daughter at that time. So it was just me. And I spent a lot of time like reading and learning and reflecting. And I made this sort of like promise to myself that I would stay present with my feelings as they came and that I wasn't going to try to like push away the hard stuff because I have this belief that part of illness results from, our emotions. And so I really wanted to deal with those things. And so I feel like my cancer diagnosis was where I dealt with my mindset and I like went through my perfectionism and my people pleasing, which I had actually thought perfectionism was kind of a positive before I had cancer.
I did too.
I was like, yeah. I'm like, I'm really detail orientated. I just like have a high bar and like, yeah,
that's right. That's right.
But then when I looked at it and I was like, and I started to read and like learn about perfectionism and I was like, oh yeah, that actually does completely hold me back from trying new things and like doing the things I want to do, or it makes me feel really stressed and like have a hard time just like not like hitting that high bar. And when I don't, I'm really hard on myself. And so all that sort of inner work, I think, and the people pleasing part as well. Like, I think I, got tested on that a lot because, when you have cancer, you're tired, like you're really tired and your treatments tire you out and you just don't have the ability to be a people pleaser anymore, I think.
Yeah.
Or if you do, you're like using all your energy for that. So I just like, I stopped. I said, you know what, I don't have energy to make you feel good about this. Like, which I did a lot before. I made people feel good about things and I made them feel comfortable and, not always in a positive way. Like so it was really, that was the catalyst for all the inside stuff. And then when I became a mom, then it was all the outside stuff, so I really started to like, dig into the clutter. We moved into, we live in a small space, which I think ultimately is a blessing because it really pushed me, but it made it really challenging. And so it was all the stuff, all the schedules, the routines, like all of that stuff. I just really honed in on what mattered. And it was that push. Like, I can't keep up with all the cleaning, all the stuff, all the time, working full time, being a mom, and my husband and I have quite opposite schedules. So it was those two big things I would say were like the catalyst, and it was definitely a process.
I'm sitting here thinking, when we sort of had our, big defining moment sort of blow up with physical and mental health, I remember thinking later, when I reflected back on it, that it gave us permission to start telling people no. And that, we didn't want to people please anymore, because it was like, we are burned out. We can't do it.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to hear you say that with that too. Go ahead.
Yeah, you just reach a breaking point.
Yeah.
Where you have to make that decision. You're forced into it.
Yeah. Was your cancer diagnosis before you were a mom?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, as someone we are not parents, human child parents, but I'm just sitting here thinking, I am wondering if that perhaps made you maybe a better mom to go into that after you had sort of set your different mindset.
Yeah, totally. And it's interesting because I talk a lot to like friends and other people and other parents of kids I teach, like, about sort of like raising strong women, because I think the more I go through motherhood and my own experience and like my own sort of shedding of the perfectionism and people pleasing, is that people are really uncomfortable with women. And I can only speak to women because that's my experience. But I would say, uncomfortable with women when they're not sort of polite and nice and, making people feel good and sort of fitting inside this box. And so I definitely have found as a mom, this experience really helped me, because now I can allow my daughter to be confident and say, yeah, I'm good at that, without, sort of dulling it down to make it more palatable for other people. She can be loud and she can be who she is. And I'm totally okay with that. And it certainly is uncomfortable for other people, because everybody has parenting advice, like, oh, you should do this or you should do that. And I'm like, no, like, she's upset right now, so she's crying, and that's what's normal when you're upset.
Instead of hiding it, because that makes you feel better outside world,
totally. Or like, oh, do this to get them to stop crying, or like, it's a lot of that. And so I'm like, no, like, she's disappointed about this, and so she's walking away stomping her feet, but she's 5 years old. I'm sure, as she develops her like emotional self, she probably won't do that when she's 25, but like, she's allowed to right now.
So you brought up, go ahead.
I was going to say, that's great, because I think our culture is a lot like that too, where they want to keep, despite the strides that women have made in our culture, there's still that thing to want to keep women in a certain place or box.
There's like I read one of her books and listened to some of her podcasts about Jen Hatmaker. I had heard her on a podcast, and she said something like, women are the temperature takers. And that resonated with me so much, about how, especially when you're a really empathetic person, I think you walk into a room, and I'm sure men can identify with this too, and you can sort of feel people. And so you start to like make them comfortable, like, I don't know. I resonated with me a lot. And
that's a powerful statement. It really resonates.
That goes in line with a lot of the HSP thing. And I don't know if you've ever heard that HSP. That's a tendency of HSP type people, which means highly sensitive person, to be very empathetic and sort of feel the feelings of everybody and take them all on for themselves.
I think, we as women definitely do that. But that's a good point, that, anyone can be empathetic. And then you have that whole compassion fatigue, and then that can, really spiral. You talked about the small space, and which we're going to get into, because I love that you talk about the physical clutter and the emotional clutter. Jerry and I were talking before this episode about you, and I said, gosh, one of the things that I really resonate with her is that I read where you talked about how when things are physically decluttered in your life, how that really does play a role on the way that you feel, and you do feel like lighter as a person. And I said, gosh, dear, that's like me. Like every time we go through a decluttering phase, which we're really good about, but when we go through that phase, I can think more clearly. I feel like I can set boundaries better. It's just like, it's interesting how the physical affects the emotional and the emotional affects the physical when it comes to health. So I was wondering if you could kind of talk about that concept of letting go of the stuff, and how did you navigate through that? Like, you know, some people have to take these baby steps, or was it just like a clean slate for you?
It was definitely a process for me. I would say like when I really, really deeply started to get rid of lots of stuff, I actually started with Project 333, which have you heard of that? So it's like for people listening, it's Courtney Carver's like wardrobe declutter challenge, where you choose 33 items for 3 months or something along those lines. Like, you know, it's your version. But so I had decided I was going to do this because I knew my wardrobe was a big area for me. And, you know, I'd been decluttering, you know, we moved and I'd let go of a lot of stuff, and I've been sort of working through it. But that was a big area for me. So that certainly helped. And I think that for people, it's great to start with something structured, you know, like start with help or some kind of structure to follow, because like anything, you know, you're kind of going in not knowing, and that's overwhelming. Like I think a lot of us feel that way, like, oh, I don't know how to do that, and it feels overwhelming. But like we live in this age where you can go to YouTube, or you can pick up a book, or you can Google it, and there's answers and help available always. So it's nice to find some sort of structure that resonates with you and then go from there. And so that was like, I think, where I really deeply started to hit on like my sense of scarcity. And I had to work through that, where I was like, oh, getting rid of these clothes is hard because they were expensive, or I don't know if I can replace them, or they're like connected to something. And so it was sort of a way of me dealing with a lot of the reasons that people hold on to clutter in this like, you know, sort of box. And another strategy that came out of that process that she talks about is having like packing everything away into a box, and you know, you can stick it in the basement, like all the things that you're unsure about, and then living without them. And that strategy in itself was so helpful for me, because I was like, okay, well, I don't have to say I'm getting rid of this, but I'm going to try it. And then it sort of builds your confidence, because then you're like, oh yeah, like I can live without stuff. And as you practice it more and more, then it becomes easier. And it's also a practice of making decisions. Like if you are not a decisive person and it's hard for you to make a decision, it's really hard to decide you're going to let go of something. So you have to like build your confidence and be like, I can say no to this.
You know, one of the things I love about this time of year.
What's that, Shannon?
Well, I love that I start thinking about autumn in New York. And maybe traveling a little bit more around the holidays, things like that. But who wants to travel if you have to go and check your luggage and wait in lines and all that stuff with all the other holiday, this time of year travelers? Not us. We pack smart.
You don't start thinking about autumn in New York, because that's a year-round thing.
That's true.
You think about it a little bit more.
That's true.
That's right.
That's true. Well, what's really great about making sure that we pack smart and don't check luggage is our base carry-on rollers. We love them so much. We travel with other people and they end up buying the base carry-on rollers.
They're spread throughout our family at this point. I think because everyone envied us.
That, and also me complaining about them taking too much time because everybody checks their luggage. Are you kidding me? I went to Alaska for like 10 days and the weather was warm and hot and I did not have to check my luggage. You just have to pack smart, and it's easier to do with base.
I would say so. And yeah, that's just I've never had an easier bag that goes into the overhead, not bag, but easier suitcase that goes into the overhead compartment.
Yeah.
And I love the and I can't think of the
sport
term.
pack.
The sport pack that I wear along with it.
There's so much innovation with base, like everything you can think about with travel that you would need or want, they have. We love them so much. So if you want to take advantage of $15 off of your first purchase, go to arneradventures.com/base. That's BEIS and grab that link.
It'll be a game changer.
And it's going to be okay.
You know, she's talking about, when she talked about putting the clothes away, I was thinking about some people in our life who had, they don't anymore, things in storage, like paying for storage. And I would always say, if you don't even know what's in there, get rid of it. Like, you don't even know what it is. It's the same concept with the wardrobe and Courtney Carver's whole concept, which I love. I did something very similar. I think too, it's like, you know, when you start thinking about living more intentionally, which you really promote and you coach women through, I think when you start thinking about the items that you have, and I know we all talk about, does it bring you joy, and you know, the Marie Kondo thing, but it's true. Like, does that item, the picture, the whatever it is, does it bring a function or joy to your life? And it seems like with you, you know, with living more intentionally, which we try really hard to do. And I think it is a practice that you have to work through to be in the moment and, you know, put mindfulness through it. I'm just thinking, you know, I would like to know a little bit more about how you do that. For example, we do declutter regularly, and because we have to, because it adds up. And I read on your blog about the free stuff and how we let it in, and it's like, why are we letting it in? So I'm wondering, do you constantly practice it, or do you feel like you do? So it's not something that just comes naturally now and it's like a work.
I think I constantly think about it. Like, I think all of us, like you said, the world's full of stuff, and it's going to come through your door. Especially if you have kids. Like, I have to say, they're like, just the amount of stuff that comes through with like birthday parties and school and it's a constant flow. And so you do, like, I think that's important to recognize. I mean, no matter with or without kids, like, that stuff is going to come into your life, and you have to be able to constantly practice making decisions. So, you know, what are you doing with the junk mail that comes in, you know, like, you know, freebies that come with your groceries, like, I don't know, whatever comes in, like, you got to make decisions about it. And I think the more practice you get at it and making quick decisions, then things aren't landing in your house the same way. Like, for me, the free stuff, like, I don't know, the way I grew up too, like my mom and I always went to like garage sales and thrift stores and like, and it was fun. But then I started to learn that I had to make like a distinction between admiring something and liking the way something looks or thinking it's beautiful or whatever, and then owning it. And so I think that's been really big for me too, because I used to have lots of little like decorative things around my home, and I don't right now in this stage of my life because it's too much work. I don't want to dust things. I don't want to move them around. I just, So I think when you can make the connection between like, okay, if I own something, this is what goes into it. Do I want that? And then if I decide that I don't want it anymore, like with the free stuff, I used to think, okay, well, if I don't want it anymore, I can just get rid of it. But then you still have to get rid of it. Like, that's still a job for you.
So it's energy, like you have to put out.
So,
oh gosh.
I think that's when you can make that connection, like stuff equals work in some capacity, and you can commit to the work or say no to it. And I've just found I say no most of the time.
That's great. And it frees you up for stuff you really like to do.
Or that you really 100%. Like in your home.
Yeah.
You know, I just like you enjoy the things that you have more because they're more present. You can see them. Usually they bring you joy or for us, like a function or somewhat. So I love hearing from someone like you who, you know, from the outside person, it seems like you really have this practice down. So it is nice to sort of hear that you still do work at it sometimes.
I think I think it's like exercise. Like I say to people, like, it's not just like you're going to exercise for 30 days. Like you're going to exercise for the rest of your life. So stop thinking about it like, or move or be active in some way. Like just think about it like this is something you want to be doing because it's like good for you. It takes care of you. It's self-care. So you're just going to you can't just make decisions about everything, declutter your house, and then never make another decision about your stuff again, because you're always going to have stuff and things are going to break and you're going to have to replace them. And it is exhausting. Like we have so many choices. Like it's exhausting to make choices. Like you go into a store and you're like, oh, I need a new blender. And there's like 15 blenders. Like it's crazy to, so I think the more you also like letting go of the perfectionism or like, I'm just going to choose a blender and it's going to be okay.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Because I'm mathematical too. So I'll sit there and especially if it's food and we're choosing between things, we'll go, okay, this many ounces for this much. This and I go, oh, man, I got to figure out the math because I'm just the way I do it. And then you stand there for a while.
Overthink it. I think we overthink most things in our life. I mean, as a society, I think that we do that.
Yeah. It's hard not to. It is, and like especially when you're forced between two or 10 choices. Like it's like, okay, well, what are the specs on this one? And like you want to, I want to make one, and you want to make one purchase because you don't want to replace it a year later either. Right. So it like there's so many things, but it is really hard for us. I think.
Yeah. It is. Well, your platform emphasizes, like we talked about finding joy in moments, mindfulness. Can you share some practical ways that either you do or that you help people with your coaching to incorporate mindfulness and gratitude into your daily routine?
Yeah. So number one, I meditate every day. Of course I miss a day sometimes, but like I commit to like meditating pretty much every single day. And I can tell when I don't. And it's something that I started when I had cancer. And I've read all the research about it. There's like a lot of good reasons to do it. If you're somebody who like needs that sort of push, it reduces your stress and your inflammation. It'll help you sleep better. There's so many benefits, but it also helps you develop a way of thinking that I think allows you to be less reactive in your life and more of a noticer. Like I think I can notice myself and notice what I'm doing and notice what I'm saying or how I'm about to respond more. So I can make more choices about how I respond and what choices I make. At my school, we use this framework called the habits of mind. And it's really interesting, but it's basically this sort of set of skills that they've found through research that successful people have, like successful in life. They feel they're successful, they're happy, they've done the things they want to do. And one of them is managing impulsivity, which I realized I was like a super impulsive person when I started my job. And I was like, wow, like just you can notice how quickly you respond to things like, oh, I'll help you with that. Or, just little ways we're impulsive. And so I think that like meditation allows you to be less impulsive as well, which is really helpful when it comes to stuff and, like keeping yourself clutter free as well.
Yeah.
But I just think like that one practice in itself is so impactful on how I feel, how I think, how I respond to things. So that's the number one thing I really encourage people to do. 10 minutes a day is great. 15 to 20 feels awesome. And like, YouTube, apps, like books, everything's out there for you. So you can find your way. But just to be able to sit with yourself and be present, be still, just let things go. It builds capacity for also dealing with hard things. So I think that's a really important one. And then the second one is like a practicing gratitude in some capacity. So I came to that like earlier than my cancer diagnosis. I read this book which I always kind of preface like, it's a little cheesy for some people, but I think it's really.
We love cheesy.
Yeah, I love cheesy, but some people get like turned off from it right away. But the concept of it, I think, is really helpful. So if this one doesn't work for you, there's other. But it's called like Simple Abundance. It was a day book of comfort and joy, and it was like an Oprah book club book. And like,
I think I read it. I think I read it. I might even have it.
Yeah, everybody's seen this book.
If it was Oprah book club, you read it.
Yeah.
And the whole thing is, she sort of has like a little paragraph, like a page for every day, and you read a paragraph, and they're like nice, sort of thoughtful, inspiring things. And then you write down, it was either 3 or 5 things you're grateful for. And that's the practice. And the idea is you do it for a year. And I think I probably did it like for like 6 months. And then, I broke off on my own, but the practice of writing things down and just taking the time to think, okay, what am I grateful for? And just sort of explore the idea of appreciating is really helpful. And then I think if you do that, you can start to internalize it again. Like, you're having a hard day. You can just think, okay, what am I feeling grateful for right now? Like, what is really good around me? It's breezy, it's sunny, like these shoes are really comfortable, like I have clean water, like whatever it is, but you can incorporate them. And so I think both of those things really like blend together really nicely, because they do help you develop into a mindful person who's noticing, not reacting, and appreciating. So I would say those two, simple, you can do it, both of them, in less than half an hour, less than 20 minutes a day, really. Yeah. And they're so life-changing.
Well, and I was going to say too, those two things specifically do seem to weave their way through anything you read about self-care or self-help. And you don't ever really read about anybody say, so here's the downside of meditation.
Yeah. There isn't.
There's not, or gratitude. There's no downside. Yeah.
One of the things that you said that was sort of a nugget for me is when you said meditation helps you deal with the capacity of the like challenges that come toward you. I was just like, that's so impactful, that if you need a reason, I mean, that's one in itself that, we can all use a little bit of help with dealing with challenges in our life. And so if we can meditate and have that stillness with ourselves and knowing ourselves more, especially in a world where we don't ever just stop and just listen to ourselves and feel ourselves, that whole.
It is the perfect counterbalance to modern society and the pace and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people, like I was kind of talking about with like strong women, like I think a lot of people have a hard time being present with hard feelings, like themselves and other people's, like it's really hard to watch somebody in distress because you just want to fix it. And, it like builds that capacity for empathy, where it's like Brene Brown has this really great little video that it's like an animal down in a hole, like a bear or something. It's like down in this hole, it's dark hole, the idea they're struggling. And there's 2 other characters, like the deer that keeps poking its head in. And it's like, oh, do you want a sandwich? Or like, it'll be okay. And they're sort of like offering, I guess, like sympathy. And then there's the other creature, I can't remember, that climbs down into the hole and is just there. And I feel like that's such a clear example of empathy, because it's not about trying to like make people feel better. It's about like being there with them. And so it also, like, if you can be with your own feelings, and you can also be present for other people's.
Oh,
that makes sense.
It does.
It's perfect
I think it's the cheesy, I guess, or whatever woo-woo way. When we look at the challenges in our life and to say, oh, well, the good that comes from that is that I can help someone else through it. I think that about our grief and like pet loss. And, I know when we went through all that, we felt like we were so alone, like, no one even really understood. And so I think the good of that is that we feel like now when people are going through it, we're like, oh my gosh, like we get it. I'm sure there's so many things in your life that you feel that way too.
Losing a pet, like I feel like is so underrated. Like I had, I adopted a dog, like I rescued a dog when I had cancer. It was funny. It was one of those things where I was such a rule follower before. And I was like, I'm wearing my wig. I'm going to pretend I don't have cancer so they don't like not give me this dog. Like, and I really wanted, so I adopted this, this Boston Terrier. And then he ultimately actually ended up getting a brain tumor and he died within a couple of years. But the grief that I felt over that was like, it's the same as a person. Like, and people are like, they always, I've noticed it. Like people are like, oh, my cat died. I know it's just a cat. Like people always say that. I'm like, it's not just a cat. Like it's a relationship you had with a creature, a being. And like, it's so hard. Yeah. So it's good to like find people who have experienced that because people who've experienced it know.
Like that's exactly right.
Yeah.
We always say
we sure have.
Yeah. It's there's so many things in life that you say, you know, wish I didn't have this common thing with you. I wish I didn't, but I do. And so let's work through it together. But yeah, it is the positive way of looking at it and sort of taking the good away from it.
Yeah.
So you've sort of talked about some of the challenges and overcoming obstacles when you work with women, to be more intentional and not asking one's personal story, of course, but what do you think the biggest obstacles, if there was like sort of one common obstacle with people with trying to get into a better mindset of simple living and intentional living, what do you think it is?
People feel like they don't have time. That's number one. I think I work a lot with like busy moms and women. And so a lot of it is they feel they don't have time.
You know, it's this time of year, most people don't think about hydration and how that might be something that you need to keep up as opposed to just when you're hot and outdoors and summer and all of that. But it is super important.
It should stay part of your self-discipline and your routine, I think, throughout the year.
One of the things that we love, we drink on the daily, is Liquid IV. It's a hydration multiplier. You may have heard of it. I think you can hear about it all the time, but if you haven't tried it, you really don't understand how great it is.
No, you don't. There's so many things you can do. There's so many flavors, and you can mix their flavors together. For instance, their pina colada and strawberry.
It's our favorite.
Great on their own. And then together, forget about it.
It's like you're having kind of summer cocktails, mocktails all year round, right?
That's right.
Right. But they have plenty of flavors to choose from. But Liquid IV, if you've never tried it, it's a powder that's in individual packets and you can add them to your water. And what it does is it delivers 2 to 2.5 times more hydration than just water.
It's the perfect companion for your water. Your water will really appreciate that because it makes the water look good.
Not only that, it makes the water work harder for you.
That's right.
Right? I want my water to work for me.
So head over to arneradventures.com/liquid-IV to grab our exclusive discount code and enjoy free shipping.
Yes, you won't be able to find a better deal. They have them at plenty of retail places around, but when you buy it using this discount code, yes, you save money, you save on shipping, and it's just a really great deal, especially the bundles. So we really encourage you to stay hydrated all year round.
Most definitely. And with that being said, let's get back to the show.
And I mean, they're wrong and they're right. Like they definitely have limited time for themselves. And you know, it's a season of life where things are really constricted for, you know, self-care and that sort of thing. But I would say that's number one. And it kind of coincides with, you know, this feeling of overwhelm, like they don't know where to start or they feel like they have to do it all at once. And so I think that it's recognizing you can do anything in small steps and just being okay with that. Because I think that's also the hard pill to swallow is like, oh, I can't just like knock this off my to-do list this weekend kind of thing. Like I actually have to take the time to do this. And And that in itself is a gift, because you can do like a massive declutter and feel like, okay, I did it. But if you haven't really dealt with like the underlying reasons, the underlying things that have led you there, then you will likely circle back. And even if you are dealing with those things, I think we still slide backwards. Sometimes we still make mistakes, like we still buy something that we wish we didn't buy, and, or bring something home and then think, oh, now I got to deal with this. And it's just part of the process. So I think that actually taking it slowly is a blessing. And I think when people understand that small action really just makes you feel better right away, like, because you're doing something. And once you take that first step, that you're doing something, I think that that's sort of the biggest thing. But then when you do take the action, you realize, oh, okay, like, doing this one thing, I'm not so overwhelmed.
And it gives you momentum, I think, which we talk about all the time. There's something about
something to be said for momentum.
Yeah.
So it's our little catchphrase.
It's our thing.
I borrowed it from my brother, actually.
But I feel like if you just start, whatever it is, and we do talk about that too with baby steps. As long as you're moving forward, your journey doesn't have to be the same as someone else's.
No,
it never
not
is.
at all.
No,
never.
Mm-hmm.
And it's never going to look the same way. And I think it's hard with, the internet, because you can have this window into people's lives, but we have to maintain that filter that it really is like a curated version of other people's lives. Like, not everybody is, sharing the picture of the day they were like breaking down on the couch, or they went out shopping and they bought all this stuff they wish they didn't buy, or like, nobody's really sharing like the mistakes. So I think that comparison is something we have to filter out as well.
It is the downside of social media.
It is.
It makes that comparing yourself to others a lot tougher if you look at that stuff.
Totally. But I think the more intentional, like I really feel the more you practice it, the easier it gets. Like I feel like now at this point, like of course you get those twinges like, oh, I wish that, but I can look and be like, okay, you know what, actually that just means that's possible. Or that just means like they're doing really well and I could do that, we practice thinking different thoughts in all areas of our lives. We can totally come at it from a healthy place.
Yeah. Well, if you don't mind me asking, how are you now? How is your physical health now?
Yeah, my physical health is good. I've been so I had lymphoma. I'm clear for lymphoma. Like it's been long enough. I now get screened for other kinds of cancer, because that's sort of like what happens when you get one kind of cancer and you get treated for it. It puts you at risk for other kinds of cancer. So, and then, like family history and that kind of stuff as well always play in. But so in one way it's really great, because I know I'm getting like screened for all the things that could crop up. So that's like sort of a blessing again of like, So, but my overall, my health is good now.
That's wonderful. I'm also just sitting here thinking, that while you're doing the things for prevention and, to know the screening, you're also doing so much of the intentional living and the mindfulness, like the practices you talked about that I'm sure play a role in the physical. So it's really good to hear that.
Yeah, I think so. Like I really became a big believer after going through cancer that our emotional well-being, because there's lots of other belief systems that talk about that, like even like traditional Chinese medicine, I learned like sort of relate certain parts of the body to certain emotions. And so if you over experience something like anger or like, for me, like lungs is grief and like my father died when I was younger and my brother also passed away. And so I think, my belief is a piece of my illness came from not really processing my feelings, really deeply and just sort of moving on and, being that strong, resilient person. And that probably played a role, because we know stress causes illness. So like, why wouldn't grief be stress, or,
Right.
anger be stress, or whatever it is. So,
Oh yeah, we've talked about that a lot. I mean, and we can go into that in a whole other episode, but it definitely, it does play a role with your, skin, hair, everything.
Yeah.
Well, should we get to her fast 5 questions?
I think it's a good time for the fast 5
All right.
questions.
So these are just fun, this or that, just a fun way to get to know you a little bit better. So do you want to start? Or you want me to?
You can start.
Okay. The first one is cooking or dining out?
I wish dining out, but when my budget reaches dining out, cooking though. But I do like to cook without a child.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, at least if you like cooking, it makes it even better.
I do like cooking.
We do too.
Yeah.
So it's fun.
Yeah.
Digital planner or physical planner?
Physical. I mean, I use calendar apps, but I write it all out. Yeah.
I was like that for a long time, and then I think part of our whole transition of the decluttering for me was a lot of the paper, and so I miss it sometimes, but I still just changed everything over. But I can appreciate a physical planner.
Maybe in a different season of life, I'm going to get really on top of the digital stuff, but
Okay. The third one is book or movie?
Book. But again, like season of life, I probably watch more movies than I'm alert to read, but books for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you mind if I throw in one I just thought of?
Sure.
It's about
change it up.
This would be 2 of my favorite Canadian exports.
Oh.
Neil Young or Joni Mitchell?
Oh, Joni Mitchell.
Okay.
Joni Mitchell for sure. I like Neil Young, but I'm a huge Joni Mitchell fan.
Well, I'll tell you why that's funny too, is because I love them both. I love Neil Young. Shannon just does not share my enthusiasm.
I don't know why. He can come on, and Jerry plays him a lot, and he comes on, and I just start getting, I feel a little down. Like, I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just walk in the other room and whatever.
Yeah, I don't feel it's ever really, it's not uplifting.
No.
No,
it's not. But I can appreciate him. I can appreciate the art.
Yeah.
Well, number 5, we asked this of most people, is ketchup or mustard?
Oh, that's hard. It depends on the food. I like no yellow mustard. I like Dijon mustard.
I love Dijon mustard.
But like ketchup with certain things. But
so if you had to choose one, Dijon mustard.
Dijon,
okay. All right. One day we're going to do a big planning chart that sort of signify, like, if we can see a common theme with the people, choose one or the other, because we think that's so interesting. All over the world, people they know them, so it's fun to ask people that.
Oh, that's
and it provokes some intense reactions too.
It does. Some people get really serious about it,
and again, they're just one way or the other. It's like no middle ground.
That's really funny.
Okay, the question that we do ask everyone, and we think it's important, and we like to hear the answers, is, Sarah, what does a life well lived mean to you?
I think it means like being able to find peace and joy in the way that you live. I think it means that you're choosing, because for me, a lot of my life, I didn't really recognize that I could choose so much, and that you have so much choice over so much in your life. So I really think that is really important for people to feel that they have choice. It's empowering, it relieves that stuckness feeling. And I think also developing those skills like the mindfulness and the gratitude and that sort of thing, because not only does it allow you to enjoy life and find all the good and be really present for it, but like I said, it gives you those skills as well for like coping with hard things, because we'll all inevitably end up in a place where we have to cope with something challenging. I think that life is hard, like when you're not choosing and you're not doing the things you want to do, and it's hard to get where you want to go. So it's like kind of choose the hard, and so I think it's figuring out really what you want and choosing it.
I love that so much. And I think it also goes back to how many times in life do you feel resentful of something you feel like you have to do, or resentful of, oh, I need to make sure that this person, because they're going to feel a certain way if I say no. It goes back to what you were saying, that we do have choices. I'm sitting here thinking of so many things where oh God, I just don't want to do that. Well, I do have the choice. I cannot do it.
Yeah. And then when you recognize, it's like, okay, I know I am going to choose to do the thing, but then I'm going to come into it with like a different mindset, because it's like, you know, it doesn't like, because it can feel harder than it needs to as well. Like I heard Oprah say once, she was talking about like when she was filming a movie, and she said, it was like the middle of the night and she had to go back and like film more, and she was so tired, and she kept saying over and over again, oh, I'm so tired, which I feel like I do all the time, like as a mom. And I like see Oprah in this like period piece costume in my head in the middle of the night saying like, and then she says, I'm getting my second wind. I'm excited about what's coming up, and like change the like I am statement. So that's like a big one I really try to practice as well.
Oh gosh, Sarah, you are the Oprah stuff coming in. You're our kind of people. Oh gosh. Well, Sarah, please tell our audience how they can connect with you for, simple and intentional, all things simple and intentional coaching, the website, tell everyone how they can find you. And we're going to link it down in the show notes.
Yeah. So you can find me on my website, simpleintentional.com. On Instagram, I'm most active. And if you like have questions or you're interested in coaching, you can always reach out to me, send me a message. And my podcast, Simple and Intentional, as well. And you can find that anywhere that you listen to podcasts, but all the links are also on my website or on Instagram. And this month, I haven't really nailed down the timing, but I will be teaching a capsule wardrobe class. And so I'll be sharing the details of that soon. But if you're interested in, beginning that process and like paring down your wardrobe, you can send me a message and I'll put you on the wait list, and I'll reach out when I've got all the details nailed down.
Oh, that's great. We're definitely we'll put all of that in the show notes so people can take advantage of that. That's wonderful. Our community would love something like that. So
awesome.
That's really great. Sarah, thank you so much for taking the time and being intentional with us today. and we know that time is valuable, and we really appreciate you spending it with us.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. And we hit on a lot of unique things, I think, that we don't always talk about. Yeah. So I really enjoyed everything we talked about.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, it was great meeting both of you, and I'm so happy that I could be here because this was fun.
Wow. Was Sarah not great, and just a great way to spend a Saturday morning?
Right. I know that you guys hear this if you're listening to it the day it launches. I don't know what day you listen to it, but if you do, it launches on Tuesdays, but we do usually record these on Saturdays a lot of the time. And you always say it's like having a guest in our home. And today's guest came to us from Toronto, and it was like she was right here. And oh gosh, when we have someone like Sarah on the show, there's so much we have in common about the ways that we live our lives, but we take so many nuggets away. And I think I thought she was just so great.
She was. Now, different circumstances brought us each to where we are, but we do really share this set of values that we've each come across in recent years, and just had a good time sharing and trading things that she knew that we didn't, or vice versa. Stuff, things like that.
What would you say was a key takeaway for you?
A key takeaway? Well, I really, it's still sticking with me, and maybe it's just because of the end, but her, the final statement, about having choices.
Me too. Me too.
I liked that because I felt it was kind of unique, not the typical,
right.
And it just hit well with me right at the point when she was saying it.
Me too. There were two things. That was one of them, because a life well lived, is really great lived if you can look back and go, yeah, I made my own choices. I didn't resent anyone because I held my boundaries. I didn't have to feel like I was stuck doing something because I wanted to make that person feel good. I mean, we all of course don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but you've got to protect yourself. And when she said that, man, that comes at such an interesting time for me. I mean, like I said on the last episode that we had with me and you, I feel like I've worked so hard to put things into place to make sure that my self-care is paramount. But it's a work in progress and we slip. And lately I've been feeling it pile up. And then I'm resentful of certain things in my life, certain people in my life. And I go, but wait a minute, it all comes back to the choices I make,
It does. Yeah. And it's a reminder that it's a constant process, taking care of yourself, and that you shouldn't let the setbacks derail you. Just kind of pick yourself back up. She was big one on baby steps, and take baby steps to get back into the ways and lifestyles that make you feel good.
The second thing that was really big for me, and I know I brought it up during the show, was when you meditate, it allows you to have the capacity to be able to take on challenges. I mean, I just think that it kind of goes back to the way we talk about, we've talked about the quick little meditation. Is if you're meditating at all, then, that's good. But it did make me want to say, gosh, I really should extend that practice into 15 to 20 minutes, because we start our mornings that way a lot. And I think extending it into more time, because when I have in the past, she's right. It makes me feel good to be able to have that time. And it does set you up, especially if you do it in the morning. I'm sure you could do it anytime, but it does set you up for a really good day.
Well, yeah. And what's really impactful is that it's something you can do in a short period. Like she said, 10 minutes. She said 15 or 20 is even better if you can. But it is something that you can do in a short period of time that can be so impactful on decisions you make throughout the whole day or the whole week.
What a great episode, a great guest. I love the whole message of simple and intentional. Right?
Oh, me too. Right down our alley.
If this episode resonated with you, or if you know of someone who would benefit from anything we talked about today, or any episode, our guests, or anything, please share it with a friend. It's a great way of supporting the podcast and us, and we really appreciate it.
Another way of supporting the pod is by leaving us a 5-star review or rating on the platform you're listening to us on. Oh, and go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because that also supports us. We would love that.
You can always find us, links we refer to during the show, and any of the podcast sponsors at arneradventures.com, or linked here in these show notes. And until next time, enjoy that journey you're on. We're wishing you lots of adventures.
Adios.
Arrivederci.
Au revoir.
Adios.
Sayonara.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Dos vidaniana.